On to our incredible guest this evening. Man, it's all about unlocking real estate with wholesaling. And an individual that I absolutely love. I've got huge history with Christion Sadler. I mean, Christian and I go back, gee whiz, I'm trying to think. It's probably 17, 18 years or more. Christian, that really dates us, doesn't it, man? I mean, we really go back. Well, he's here and he is our practitioner guest investor. Now, he's not a practitioner instructor. He's not creating classes with us, but he is a product of the product. And today he's out here to help everybody understand how they can really capitalize on the deals that are in the marketplace through wholesaling. Wholesaling, as you know, is one of the best strategies to take a person from start to money, because there's a lot of great things about it, and Christian's going to discuss that. So I'm going to bring him out, man, Mr. Christion Sadler, so that we can discuss more of your strategies and your business in detail. So, Christian, come on out and join me.
Well, thank you, Bob. And yeah, I think that next year it'll probably be 20 years
Will it be
if,
20
I
years?
look back at it. Yeah, I think it was 2005 when I first connected with you and your companies. And, it's not going to be very long, Bob, before I've known you longer than I've not known you. So, kind of a cool deal there.
That is, man. You've known me longer than you've been alive. That's pretty crazy. Well, that's excellent. Hey, Christian, you know what? We appreciate you being our guest on a Renatus InvestEdge. We're thrilled to be able to spend a little bit of time with you because, you're a mover and a shaker. I mean, you've done all sorts of different strategies. Talk to us a little bit about that. What types of real estate strategies have you been engaged in the past?
Well, that's a beautiful thing, Bob, and something that I'm going to focus on, in my training here is it really comes down to the basics. And you can span multiple strategies. I've done single family, I've done multifamily, I've done commercial real estate, I've done land transactions. I've done everything from buy and hold to wholesale to fix and flip to, I mean, the list goes on and on. There's so many different asset classes and asset types that I've been able to be a part of. And really because of my involvement in this community, it's also spanned me into, becoming a licensed real estate professional and becoming a TV host and I've been on the radio and, numerous times I've, spoken in front of stages and done all kinds of amazing things. And it's even what propelled me, I believe, into the opportunity now where I'm building a company that could change the aspect of commercial real estate on a very large scale. So yeah, I'm a real estate nerd, Bob. And what I love is the Renatus education and everything that I learned through this company allowed me to just kind of explore all these different aspects of real estate.
Well, and that's why I'm so excited to be able to bring you out today. Now, listen, I know you've prepared some information for us. I want you to be able to just kind of help these folks see what you're doing as far as the wholesale strategy is that you've told us you're going to share a little bit about this evening. And then, we'll follow up and have the opportunity to ask some questions. So those individuals out there, as they have a question emerge, just post that in the comments section, and Mr. Jay Stark will do his best to find those and bring those forward at the appropriate time. So, Christian, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, again, I titled this Real Estate Basics and Wholesaling because we'll get to wholesaling, but what it comes down to is understanding the basics. And when you understand the basics of real estate, then you can take it in so many different directions, including wholesaling. And for me, wholesaling was actually the first strategy that I got started in by default. It's just what I would happen to be able to do when I was first getting started at 22 years old in real estate investing. But I always kept it as an option with any transaction that I came about. Wholesaling was always an option. So essentially, when I get a property or a situation that comes up, I look through it, and if I can turn around and wholesale it quickly, rather than going through all the risks of buying the property, fixing the property, exiting the property. And if the numbers made sense, then great. But also, if there was enough upside on the back end, then I would forego wholesaling the property. And so when it comes down to it, it's first about the people and then the numbers. When it gets down to the basics of real estate, and I can actually go back, Bob, to presentations where I had people interrupt my presentation so frustrated because they had the money, They understood the numbers, they could do the math, but they just couldn't get a deal done, and they couldn't figure out why people in our community were getting deals done. And it was because they were so focused on numbers that they didn't understand. And it was proof, the proof was in the pudding when they were willing to stand up and interrupt, somebody else's presentation. They just didn't have any people skills. So what I will implore you, if you guys are, getting into real estate, is focus on your people skills first. Focus on your personal development and how much you care about the person on the other side of the transaction. And that is going to be what helps you succeed in real estate. And so it comes down to rapport. And when you're building rapport, a lot of people think that building rapport means that you go into all these, conversations about, I also used to have a dog when I was younger and it, got tripped up by a turtle. And, I mean, I see so many people that think they're building rapport in a conversation and they end up in Cincinnati or Mars for that matter, right? They don't stay at the subject matter at hand. So let me just help you guys. And I'm going through a lot of information, and I'm going to try and move it quickly, partly to save my own voice. Building rapport does not have to be off topic or personal, situations that don't have to do with the property itself. In fact, most of the time, if somebody is contacting you because they have a real estate problem and you have put yourself out there as somebody who solves real estate problems, they're going to want you to talk about the problem at hand, the real estate at hand. So here's what I've found. When I'm finding a transaction and I decide that, or a situation, I should say, because it's usually more about the situation than anything. The way that I build rapport with people is I ask them about the house. So the first thing, and I've got them numbered here, the first thing is I start by talking about the house. Tell me a little bit about it. And then I use the top-down method, which is, how is the roof? What about the heating and air conditioning? How is that? How about the walls? Is there any holes in the walls? And I'll do this whether I'm on the phone with them or whether I'm there in person with them. I'll just start asking them questions about the house. And the way that I keep myself on track is I use the top-down method. I start with the roof, and then I think about what's in the attic. I think about the ceiling. Is there holes in the ceilings? I think about, okay, what about the electrical? Do you have any electrical issues? Is there any plumbing issues? How about the walls? How about the flooring? How about the kitchen? I just go through in my mind and I try to check off everything about the house. And what you'll notice is by the time you get to the bottom of it, you have a lot more information than you first started with. Because if you ask a homeowner, what condition is your house in? Usually they're going to say, it's pretty good. Overall, it's in great shape. And then sometimes you might even be having them tell you that while you're looking underneath the cabinet and you see, a leak that's been there for years and is leaking all the way down to the basement. True story. I've had it happen. So the way that you get them to come out with more information is just going through step by step, each piece, each part of the house. And you'll notice by the time you get to the end of that, there's two ways you can take it. And what you want to do is as a continuation of the conversation. You don't have to have any, stopping point. You can say, you know what? It sounds like this is a really great house, or it looks like this is a really great house. Why do you want to sell? Now, the great part about it is if you get one of those people that they're just talkers, they will share everything. You don't have to ask any more questions from that point forward because they will tell you the story. They will tell you how they came about it. They'll tell you about the divorce they went through. They'll tell you about, the notice of default that's been filed, and you're just taking down notes. But what you'll find is a lot of people, they don't share all of that information right up front. But if you've built enough rapport, they'll give you a little bit of an answer. And then the next question I found, and this is where you really start figuring out, is there motivation? The next question is, when do you need to sell by? And so they're going to give you an answer. They're going to say, I need to sell by next month. I need to sell by next week. I need to sell by January, whatever that number is. And then here's the question where I always figure out, is this a want to sell or a need to sell? And that question is, if you don't sell by that timeline, what are your plans? And what you'll find is if they come to you and they say, if I'm not able to sell by next month, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm already 90 days behind. The bank is threatening to take my home. That's a need to sell situation. And that's when they're going to be able to open up to you, and you can start, with compassion, asking them, what do you need? to be able to move on, and you can get through that. If they just come back to you when you ask that question and say, I'll hold on to it, I don't really care, then guess what? You're probably not going to get too much about the situation. They're probably not really in a need to sell situation. It doesn't mean that there's not a deal to be had, but you're no longer dealing with solving a problem. You're just going back to a number situation. So run your numbers, make the offer, and see what happens. But what it comes down to is when you understand the situation, you let the facts determine the strategy, not the other way around. And unfortunately, I see this way too often where somebody goes through a fly-by-night boot camp.
We're getting bad, a little bit of interruption on your stream here. So let me see. Is that your internet connection or my internet connection?
Everything seems to be good on my end.
Okay, then continue on. It might even be mine. I was just worried that it was becoming a little bit of the stutter, and I didn't want, a blowback to the 80s to be that Max Headroom kind of, look and feel.
Got it. Well, if everybody can still hear me, once you get the information, you get the facts of the story and what's going on and the problem that needs to be solved, you have to understand that you need to let the facts determine the strategy, not the other way around. And I see way too often people that have, especially now as being a licensed real estate professional and selling properties and having people make offers, many people go through these boot camps or these, one trick pony type trainings, and they try to fit every single deal into that one strategy. And what you'll find is when you figure out what the facts are, it'll tell you whether this is potentially a subject to, whether this is potentially a short sale, whether this is something that, you could just buy outright cash. They may own it outright and you could get just a traditional seller financing. There's all kinds of different strategies. And I put that symbol in there as a tribute to Chris Albin and his training about having all the tools in your tool belt. So I'm just going to suggest, again, you want to let the facts determine the strategy, not the other way around. And as you get into this, it's all about the numbers. And the most important number in the transaction is the ultimate value, the after repair value, if that's the case, or the current value, depending on what strategy and what property it is that you're buying. I believe that market analysis is one of the most underrated skills in real estate. And I can tell you right now, as I've stepped into, dealing with people who own hundreds of millions and even billions of dollars in real estate, they rely a lot on that individual that does the market analysis. But for you, even in the starting point, what you want to do is get good at understanding how to evaluate and value real estate, and don't leave that to somebody else, especially if you're the one buying the property. Because if you're buying the property, ultimately that value, it comes down to you. And if you can't sell for that price, if your ultimate exit is a sell, you're the one stuck holding the bag, and you're the one potentially putting other people's money at risk if you're borrowing money to do the deal. But I got a little question down there. But what if I'm just wholesaling the contract to somebody else? Well, good news. It's not so much about what your numbers are, it's about what their numbers are. And what you're going to realize is every investor is unique. Some investors, they're buying with all cash. They may be happy if they can get a 6 or 7% return on their money, and they just keep their money moving, and they just want to stay in the game of real estate. You'll see a lot of these old dogs in real estate, I call it, where they've just been doing this for years. They've got cash, and they just, kind of keep making a good living. They've got equity built up, and sometimes those guys are willing to pay a little more for real estate. Sometimes not, right? You never know. You may have somebody that's coming that's going to make an offer, and they're actually going to get traditional financing, and they're going to move into the property. You may have somebody that has hard money costs. You might have somebody that's coming in and they're going to buy this as an investment to buy and hold. Maybe they're doing the BRRRR method. Every investor is unique. And so what you want to do is you just want to get a baseline for them to do their own evaluation if you're wholesaling the property. Because if you're wholesaling the property, ultimately what you want is you want to be able to solve the problem for the seller. You want to have some profit for yourself in between, and you want to have somebody on the back end that there's enough meat on the bones that they can execute whatever strategy it is that they are executing on. But ultimately, guys, same equation. It's just different numbers depending on what strategy they're using. So it's ARV minus CapEx. I'm using a commercial term there. That's just repairs, right? The money that you're spending on fixing the property or whatever it is. So ARV minus CapEx minus holding costs minus disposition. And I say disposition because that could be a sell, but that could also be the cost of refinancing the property and holding on to it. So ARV minus CapEx minus holding minus disposition minus the most important number for that investor. And if you're the one buying this property, don't be the one that leaves this number out, because I've seen it countless times when somebody brings me a deal and says, look how good it is, and they forgot to factor in their own profit. So that's the formula. That's their max offer. So when they do that number and they come to you with their max offer, ultimately, if you can do that and you can have some profit in between, it's a great little deal. And I'll give you an example of one. And I'm going to take a drink just real quick. Now, this property actually came to me as a listing. So it was a referral that was referred to me where somebody's brother was in a situation. He needed to get out of this house. He had people living in the basement that were not respecting his space. I mean, this guy was on oxygen, and these people were, smoking cigarettes and who knows else what, by the way, in the basement. They weren't paying rent like they originally said that they were. We needed to get him out of that situation and into a whole new environment. It just wasn't a good environment for him to be in. So originally, I took it on as an agent, and I listed the property, and I collected a whole bunch of offers sight unseen offers. This up to where we were going to have 2 days to allow people to go through the home, see what the home was, and then make their offers, and we were going to get him out of there with a cash offer. That's what he needed to be done with this petition because of the situation and everything else. Well, again, he had a lot of not so good influences in his life, and they convinced him not to sell the property because they didn't want to let people go walking through the home, and who knows what they could find, and yada, yada, yada. So he canceled the listing. And hey, I'm never going to force anybody into a situation. I'm not one of those that if you sign a contract with me, you got to get it sold. No, I only get paid if the job gets done, right? When it comes to my license. And so we moved on, but then he came back to me and he said, I really need to get out of this situation. What can you do? And I said, well, what I'm not going to do is put it back on the market and get all the investors across the county, excited about this project again, and then have to tell them that it's not going to happen. So I'll make you an offer. And now I knew that we could get an offer if somebody could just get through the property for $340,000. But I knew that I needed to build in some profit in there because I didn't know what all the situation was going to be. So I came to him and I said, I'm going to come into this and I am not representing you. I am buying this to make a profit. I'm going to offer you $300,000. He said, great. His sister, who was helping him manage this whole process, also said, great. This is awesome. This is going to get us out of this situation. And by the way, do I have to stick around with all those people? Good news. No, you don't. You can move out now. We can execute this over time and we'll get it done. And then what I did is I reached out to some of my friends who are hard money lenders. And I said, listen, guys, I'm out of the flipping game. It's not something I do anymore. I don't want to be, I don't want to be out there flipping properties. Who do you know that would be a good fit for this? And so I talked to Matt Strong and he gave me a couple of names, and I talked to Dane Clark and he gave me a couple of names. And I talked to Mike Krog and he gave me a couple of names. And then I talked to Ryan Black, and Ryan said, I know just the person. And I'll tell you what, if you can get us through there, we just need to get through there one time, we can make a decision. So I set it up. We went through there. We walked through the home. Ryan was there. His potential investor was there. We walked the home. And when all was said and done, Ryan's investor said, there's just some things I'm not sure about on this house. I don't know that I want to move forward. But Ryan Black said, well, I know a good deal when I see it, so I'm just going to buy it from you, Chris. And we got the deal done. So ultimately, I wholesaled it over to Ryan. He's now turned around this property. I don't know exactly where he's at in the process, but I'm sure you'll have him on the Invest Next webinar soon, and he'll share some details of other projects. And anyways, it's just a quick wholesale. Everybody was happy. I'm happy to say he moved to Las Vegas with his sister during the time that we went through this wholesale process. Those people refused to leave. Ryan had to deal with the evictions and everything that came with that. But he has now been able to take the money from that house, buy his new home cash. He's in a better situation. He's out of the bad environment with bad influences around him, and it was a win-win from everybody. So when it comes down to it, the more tools you have, the more ways you have to win. That's what's so crucial about the Renatus education, is you get to learn all kinds of different tools, all kinds of different strategies, and then fit those strategies into the situation that you're dealing with. And please remember, you are dealing with people, right? I've had some situations recently where, people that were trying to be wholesalers came in and, they were just negligent in the way that they were willing to put properties under contract that they never expected to be able to close on with a hope and a prayer. And what I would suggest is, come into this and understand that there's people on the other side that if you're offering to pay them cash, that, they probably have plans for that money. And, if you do good, if you do good business, ultimately you'll be able to do a heck of a lot more.
Outstanding, man. That's great. It's so funny because as you're listing names, I'm going, oh yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, we've got Dane Clark. I believe he's scheduled not for next week, but the following week as our guest trainer to talk about, what he's done in his business and so forth. And Ryan Black, I don't know if Jay's got him on the list, but I think he is now. So it's kind of nice to have all of those connections. Wonderful to have community, isn't it, Christian? Make a few
Oh, it
phone
is.
calls and
Absolutely.
get the deal done.
Definitely.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about a wholesale transaction. There may be some folks that are watching us right now that are going, this sounds great. Wholesaling. What is it? How do I do it? Give them a little feedback there.
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I didn't quite clarify that. So, in a wholesale transaction, typically what you're doing is you're going and getting a contract on a property. It's a piece of paper that says I can buy the property with these terms and I have to, meet these requirements. And then you're getting the ability to assign that contract. So as you're filling it out, you're getting the opportunity to assign that contract. And then what you're doing is you're selling that assignment or your rights to execute on that contract. So I had the contract for $300,000 and I had the opportunity to sell that contract to Ryan so that he could execute on my behalf all the same terms. So the seller still gets everything that they were wanting. It just comes down to who closes on the transaction. And usually you can make a pretty penny in between.
Excellent. So the fact that you've got an equitable interest because you've got a contract, you're not selling the property, you're selling the right to purchase the property. And
Correct.
so when you do a transaction like that, Christian, I mean, how much money you got to have in the bank? I mean, really, do you have to come out of pocket the whole $300,000?
Absolutely not. That's the beautiful thing about wholesaling is it could be as little as zero. It could be the amount of money that it takes to, put together a contract and either send it over in a digital signing service or, bring it to them and getting that signature in person.
So you're playing middleman a lot of times.
Absolutely.
Does that
Yep.
require a license?
Does not require a license.
Yeah. Now I know it doesn't in the state of Utah. There may be a couple states there that might do it, but it certainly does.
Yeah, there's some nuances there. And please know if you are licensed or thinking about getting your license, which I had this nuance, I had this belief for a long time, Bob, that getting a license was a silly thing to do and it was going to inhibit me. I've always been full disclosure anyways, so it has not inhibited my real estate investing whatsoever. As long as you have a supportive broker who, allows creativity in your transactions, there's actually a lot of benefit to having a license. You do have to disclose. So if you are wholesaling, there's some certain disclosures that you have to put in place if you are a licensed agent.
How many times when you're doing a real estate investing deal for yourself that you find that having a license actually benefits you because you get to double dip?
Yeah, I would say fairly often you get the opportunity to make money in other ways. And I passed up those commissions for a really long time, and it was kind of silly of me. I used to just give those away to, people that I trusted. But who do
Uh-huh.
I trust more than myself?
Well, and I found that nobody cares about your financial well-being as much as you do. So I think you're on the right track there. That's fantastic. and it's just a great example of wholesaling. Now, this is a fairly recent deal, I would assume. So, when did this take place?
Yeah, I believe it was in October, if
Okay.
I remember
All
correctly. I
right.
could
So in
pull up
October, you
my
knocked
mind.
out a wholesale deal. You made yourself a nice little profit, and then you moved on. And Ryan got himself a good deal. So he's probably in the process of rehabbing the property, fix it up, and sell it to the retail market, right? Um, in today's marketplace, in today's real estate, market, with interest rates that have gone up over the last few years and, started to kind of bounce around a little bit in the sixes, what do you see for the real estate market going forward? Is now the right time to invest?
There's a saying out there, Bob. You don't wait to buy real estate, you buy real estate and wait. Yes, it is the right time to invest. And nobody has a crystal ball, but the thing is every market presents opportunities. That's a people looking for a certain type of property. And one of the ways that you can get into wholesaling is you could actually reverse your way into it. Really good investors, people that are closing on transactions consistently. And you say, just break down the numbers for me. If I was to find the best deal, what would it look like? And what are the minimum that I need to hit in order for you to buy a property? If you can get those parameters, you could actually back your way into transactions and have your buyer on the line ready to go.
Excellent. How many wholesale deals are actually found on the MLS?
Oh, there's a handful. They're out there, Bob, but it's not the typical way you're going to go out there and get a wholesale deal.
Is it true in your experience that, most of the time, by the time it's hit the MLS, I mean, the opportunity for investing is diminished significantly?
Well, most of the time, and part of that is if you've got, a good real estate professional that's looking out for their seller, there's a barrier there. They're going to protect them and they're going to try to get them the highest and best offer that they can get. And so the only way, well, not the only way, one of the ways that you can find deals on the MLS is you just make a lot of offers. You get good at running your numbers and you make offers regardless of what it's listed at, regardless of what it shows on the MLS. And then if that agent presents that to their seller and there's a need and a motivation, well, they may, move on that. Typically, though, if you're going to the MLS, you've got to talk through the agent, and the agent, out of fiduciary responsibility, is not going to give you all of the details of the situation of their seller because they're trying to protect their seller's interest. Whereas when you can go direct to the seller, which is how I bought almost all of my real estate over the years, is working directly with the seller, is first of all, you can find out what the real situation is so that you can tailor your offer and your solution to their needs. But also, most of the time, you don't have any competition. If a good deal hits the MLS, like when I listed that one, Bob, I had over 20 offers on that property before people had even seen it, right? So you're competing. And when I showed that list of all the different types of buyers out there, you're going to be competing with every single type of buyer out there, the cash buyer, the move-in buyer, the hard money buyer. You don't want to have all that competition. When you can get direct to the seller and you can help solve their problem, oftentimes you're the only one in line.
Yeah. And those individuals are available. How do you find individuals who are in financial stress and are looking for an individual like an investor to come in and save them from that?
So plenty of ways to do it. Here's the first way that I would suggest, and this is a way that I've seen more people get their first deal the fastest, is just start talking about it. Put it on your social media, start, having real estate conversations and start letting it be known, not that you're just buying real estate, but that you solve real estate problems. When you start being known as the person that helps people out of tough situations in real estate, pretty soon people are going to be bringing them to you. And that's where, I mean, I would suggest that if you're watching this right now, you have a wholesale or other type of transaction in your network right now, waiting and wishing that they had you to come in and solve the problem. But somebody has to know that that's what you do and that's what you specialize in. Other than that, Bob, you can put out, roadside signs. You can put ads in the classified ads out there. Just let it be known. I solve real estate problems. or I buy homes for cash, or I'll buy your house, I'll make your payment, just as a few examples.
Mhm. Now, when it comes to the retail market, they're generally looking for a pretty little house that's pretty much move-in ready, right? So, what do you find with the best types of deals for a wholesale transaction?
Well, again, it really comes down to the situation and the numbers. Typically on a wholesale, you're not selling it to a retail buyer. In fact, we oftentimes will call that a wholesale because you're wholesaling it to the retail market in that case. So if you can find a great little home that's in, nice shape and ready to move in, there's oftentimes ways that you can do that and you can turn around and sell it to an end buyer. But typically, your buyer is going to be another investor. It's going to be somebody in the Renatus community, somebody that likes to fix properties or somebody that likes to buy properties and hold on to them. And so, yeah, typically you're looking for some distress in that situation that you can turn around and you can give to somebody else that's capable of taking on that problem.
So, what's the advice that you would give to somebody who's just brand spanking new, starting out? They want to become a wholesaler because they know that, I mean, that's the fastest way from start to money, and they can do no money down transactions. What's the the Christion Sadler wisdom you could share?
Don't shortcut your education. So take your time and understand the business of real estate. That's what Renatus offers is to have the opportunity to really learn the business of real estate and all the different aspects. So don't cut your education, but also get out there and talk to people. So there's really two aspects that you're going to want to start doing. First of all, talking to the people that are already in your network and know you, and make sure that they now know you as somebody that solves real estate problems.
Right on.
So I already talked about that. But then the other thing you need to do is you need to get out and talk to people who are actively investing in the market. Go to your RIAs, go to your meetups, go to your, Renatus presentations, find out who's doing real estate and just learn. Get there early, help set up, stay late, and help, take things down. Those conversations that can be had at 10 p.m. outside in the parking lot, sometimes those are the ones that will change your business forever.
Yeah, that's the power of community, man. That is excellent. Listen, I've been hogging all the questions. I know Jay's probably over here, and he might have a few folks that would love some input. And this is an opportunity for you to ask anything. I mean, that's the beauty of it. So, Jay, what questions have we got coming in on the
First,
comment
I gotta
section
say,
here?
so many people are excited, Christian, to hear from you, and then to talk about wholesaling and to see the power of wholesaling in today's market. That's just phenomenal. We have had this question come through a number of different times from different people in different ways, but basically they're asking how much can a wholesaler make on any given assignable contract? Is there some sort of like rule of thumb that you follow? And also, if they don't sell it, do they then have to purchase or close and purchase the home?
Great question. Great question. So first of all, there's no set number. On that transaction that I showed you, I made $29,000. And that was full disclosure. Everybody knew, what was being made there. So, you can make 30, 40, 50. I've seen people make 7 or 6 figures on a wholesale before. Those are rare. More standard that I've seen is probably between $5,000 to $15,000 because you're not taking a lot of risk. So it depends on how good of a deal that you could find, right? The more spread and the more meat that you can leave on the bone for the end investor, the more you can build in for yourself as well. And then when it comes down to, well, if I don't find anybody, do I have to close on it? Well, the thing about it is you're going to write this just like any other real estate contract, and you're going to have due diligence timelines. You're going to have, maybe even financing and appraisal timelines, or, you'll have different contingencies in there. And what you want to do is you just want to watch those very closely. Now, I would also suggest that as you're watching those, you're communicating with the seller and you're letting them know this is the process that it's going to go through. I'm going to be taking people through this home. We're going to have this timeline. My hope and my goal is that I have somebody that comes in and we're going to close on this property, whether that's me with a partner, or somebody else that I find through that process. And so as long as you watch your timelines, if you don't find anybody and you can't figure out how to get the deal done, then again, communicate that and let the seller know, listen, I'm just not able to get it done at our current numbers. And that may give you the opportunity to either renegotiate or, you walk away from the deal.
Right on. We have Jasper that asked this question. What are some of the repairs you've missed and have cost you a pretty penny? Can you give us 4 to 5 examples? Also, do you have to pay capital gains tax in your state for wholesaling income?
Capital gains is going to be determined on your particular situation, right? You have to look at your whole overall picture. Usually the answer is yes, you're going to pay some taxes in there. And then repairs that have been missed. I mean, man, that's a big question, right? How many, is it repairs that we didn't know up front and then we found out later on, or is it repairs that we didn't do and then the seller found later on? Trying to think of some that maybe would be, fun to talk about. I mean, this wasn't me in particular, but I saw somebody that didn't get the sewer line checked, and they ended up having to replace the sewer main. That can be a big added cost. We bought a property once where all the plumbing was rotted, and you had to replumb the whole house. That's that can turn into an additional cost.
I just talk about the sewer line, Christian, because Holly and I, my wife and I, almost bought a house a few years ago, and that was one of the things of our due diligence is that we paid the few $100. We made sure that the sewer line was scoped so that we could see what was going on in there. It had a big old massive belly in it and had some serious challenges. And we looked at the deal and we used that as a reason during our due diligence period to back out of the deal. And then it just kind of blew us away because it wasn't that long after that period of time that the house caught fire and burned to the ground. We kind of looked at it as a little tender mercy, that belly in the sewer line helped us to avoid getting into a home that was fire ridden.
Yeah, absolutely. And you never know fully what you're getting into with a house, but those extra things, Bob, it's so inexpensive to have a plumber come in there and just run his cameras down. And the thing is it's not the end of the world, especially now with the repiping options that they have for for main lines and whatnot. It can be, taken care of, but if you don't factor it in up front, it can be a real big issue.
Mm-hmm. It can, because if the line collapses, you don't have the opportunity to go and repipe. And that's a fun look. That's a cool process if you've ever seen it done. Anyway, that's outstanding. Any other examples you can think of?
Yeah, I was trying to get 4 or 5 like Jasper asked for. And I think when it really comes down to is, you've got your minors and your majors. Your minors are going to be the cosmetic things, the walls, most of those are simple and you can take care of them. Your majors are going to be electrical, plumbing, HVAC. If it ever comes in and you get, another one that you want to make sure you check on is meth remediation. Again, meth remediation is not the end of the world, but if you don't factor in up front, that could be a $5,000 or $6,000 repair or more. Plus, it could factor into all of the other things that you might not have thought you needed to do, but now have to. And so, that's one that you always want to make sure you check on before getting into a property.
So Jeremy asked this question, says, would you recommend full inspections for all potential purchases? Is there any reason or time that you would not do a full inspection on a property?
I got to the point where I wasn't doing a lot of home inspections per se, because home inspections, they're going to go through the same process. If you get good at this and you've been doing it long enough, you'll probably do that yourself. Up front, I would definitely suggest it. When you're first getting started, pay the few $100 for a home inspection, but don't just pay them and wait to hear back from them. Ask, and demand, if you will, right? Choose somebody, right? I'm not telling you have to tell them how to run their business, but if they're not willing to let you walk through with them and let you ask questions along the way, maybe just choose a different home inspector. And watch the little things they do, like the way that they shake the toilet or, the way that they, tap on certain, places. And then ask them, why are you doing that? What is it that you're looking for? If you do that once or twice, you're probably going to have a pretty good idea. And then it really comes down to, all right, now I need to do, take care of the specialists. After I've done the basics, I've got it under contract. You don't have to do any of that up front, right? You can get in there and get the basics, get it under contract, and then during your due diligence timeline, that's when you're actually going to go through there and get the inspection done, or if you've already done, most of your own inspection, you're going to have the plumber come and run and look the sewer line. You're going to have the, meth test done and those types of things. So that'd be my suggestion there. Also, if you're wholesaling it, get the basic inspection done and then leave that to whoever's ultimately buying it, because it comes down to them anyways. And what you don't want to do is have the liability of saying, here, I'm going to present you with this home inspection that says these are the only things wrong with the property, and then have that person execute the contract and come back to you and say, you told me that this was the only thing wrong. When I'm wholesaling a property and people start asking me questions of how much is it going to cost to repair, I'm going to say, it depends on what you choose to do with it. Well, how much do you think it's worth? Well, I don't know. I mean, there's one down the street that sold for this much, but you're going to have to do your own evaluation. Because what I don't want to do is be the one that talked somebody into getting into a transaction haphazardly. I would rather see them do their own full due diligence, because then they can take the responsibility if they don't execute.
Right on. Cher asks, have you ever had foundation issues surprise you? And then Teresa followed it up with, how much time do you typically allow for due diligence?
So first question, I can't think of any that really affected us as far as foundation. That's something that usually you get a good idea of up front. I could definitely say I've seen some crazy foundation issues over times, but none that really came up and surprised us that I can think of off the top of my head. And then what was the second question?
How much time do you typically allow for due diligence?
As much as you possibly can.
Right
would be
on.
my first suggestion. So depending on the situation, as much due diligence as you possibly can. And if you can give yourself due diligence right up until the closing deadline, then man, you're giving yourself, lots of room in there. But not everybody's going to accept a contract like that. So you want to be reasonable with it as well. I mean, typically, again, if you're just, if this is a simple fix and flip transaction and you're going to wholesale it on, I'll stick with maybe like a 7-day due diligence and a 14-day close, just so that it feels, sooner. If I know this person doesn't have that, extreme motivation or whatnot, then I'll extend it out 30 days. And then if there's, some things that are unknown that I know I'm going to have to figure out, I'll stretch that baby out as long as I can, 60, 90 days, or longer
Right
if
on.
need be.
So I know that we've got several other questions that I haven't necessarily had time to share with you. Would you be willing over the next little bit to come in here and maybe answer some of these questions in the comments of the video after the fact?
Sure, I can do that.
Right on. So
Sure, I can do
then
that.
I'll end with this question. You can take this so many different directions, but we're coming right up on the top of the hour. James asked, is there anything challenging about wholesaling?
There's a tremendous amount of things that are challenging about wholesaling. And oftentimes people think that it's the easy way to get started in real estate. I don't think that it is. You're really going to go through the grind of trying to find a deal that's good enough to not only for somebody else to buy and make a profit with, but also to have enough profit built in there for you. And so, it's one of those things that, while it might be a transaction that you can get into usually with little to no money, especially in the beginning, if you're brand new to real estate, it's going to take a tremendous amount of time, focus, and effort. And so those are some of the challenges. And then when it comes down to it, there's all kinds of different people you're going to be dealing with. And the best thing about real estate is the people. And the worst thing about real estate is the people. And so you just got to be careful in how you structure, how you write your contracts, and make sure that your full disclosure in everything that you're doing, and you're protecting yourself along the way, and creating win-win scenarios.
Yeah. And you know what? Let's talk about the win-win scenario as well, Christian, because what you want to do, especially if you wanted to go into the wholesaling business, that means you're going to become an acquisition expert. And it takes time to become an acquisition expert. But as you do, If that is your ability, I mean, if your skill stack is positioned you so that you can go out there and really crush it in finding great wholesale deals, you're going to want to make darn good and sure that you don't overprice them, because you're going to push them on to other investors who maybe have become really good at the fix up and the flipping or the reselling of that property. And if you sell them a bad deal, they'll remember it the rest of their life and they won't trust you and they'll tell everybody else about it. So you got to do good, clean business. And by doing good, clean transactions, the word gets out and you're going to have everybody knocking on your door because they know you'll do them a solid and find the great deal that has margin for you and margin for them.
Exactly right.
All right. Christion, I'm so proud of you, man. This is so wild. Talk about a walk down memory lane. I mean, 20 years now, 20 years. I mean, I can remember when you were just getting started. I mean, you were a welder and a steel cutter and designer, and you did all sorts of great work in that field. And now to see what you've been able to accomplish over the last 20 years is it's just very rewarding for me. It really is. I'm proud of you. And I am so thrilled that you were willing to take some time to come out here and share with the community on Renatus InvestEdge a little bit about, what makes you special and why real estate is the way. Any parting words for our audience today?
I think I've said a lot of what I needed to say, but be willing to ask questions, even if you feel like they're stupid. I asked a lot of stupid questions in the beginning. And I'll give you an example, just so that you guys, just if I take the embarrassment on myself, then you guys don't have to take it on yourself. I was around, I was coming to different events when I was, 21, 22 years old, getting started, Bob. And they kept talking about subject to. And I just kept listening, and I couldn't wait. I didn't have my courses yet. So I was like, I'm wondering what subject two is, but I still haven't even figured out subject one. It took me about 6 months before I figured out that subject two was subject to the existing mortgage, not subject number two. So take that as, as it is. Be willing to ask the questions. I sat around mulling over that for months before I finally heard it. And I could have just asked the question.
Oh, that's so funny, man. You know what? I love Jeff Foxworthy and his sense of humor. And we kind of created our own little offshoot of his joke system, right? If you sign your Christmas card subject to, you might be a real estate investor. and, and today, Christion, you've graduated. You absolutely have. Proud of you. Thank you for spending some time with us, and really appreciate you in advance for spending some time in the comment section to finish answering a few questions there. This has been a great session. It's been a fantastic opportunity on Renatus InvestEdge to get more information as to how you can go out there and really, crush it in the real estate market and, align yourself with a community of people that are making great things happen. As a matter of fact, I just wanted to show you one thing here because here is something to think about. We find on a regular basis that there are individuals who say, hey, you know what? I love what you guys are doing. I love the information that is being shared with me. I'm excited about that. But I might need just a little more help and assistance. If that's you, we'd love to be able to have a consultation with you and just see whether or not there's something else that we can do to help you along in your investing career. On your screen there, you've got the link, renatus.me/invest, or you've got a QR code. If you'd like to set a time just to have a conversation with one of our investor pros, well, this is your chance, and we'd be happy to, spend some time to see whether or not there's another way that we could help assist you in your investing career. Outside of that, I just have to say thank you, Christion, once again. Thanks for everybody joining us, and let's go out there and crush it together.